to the north coast now. We're going to take a look at the Moche during the intermediate period. They are often referred to as the Lords of the North Coast. They have a shared culture that can be found in the individual river valleys, and this is the region essentially of the Moche. You can see it's in the north as opposed to Nazca being in the south. That also should suggest to you that the Moche basically is in the territory of coastal Chavin, and I think that's important to understanding some of the elements of their style or symbolism. It's here on the dry north coast that the Moche are going to create elaborate canal systems to sustain their agriculture and assist with irrigation. It is going to require that everyone work together, and it does also suggest that there is an elite portion of the society, and we are going to be referring to those folks as the lords, which just basically means the elite. We do not think that this was a state. The textbook is suggesting that, but I think new scholarship is leading us in the direction of seeing Moche as separate groups of people with individual lords or rulers in the individual river valleys, but all of them sharing a unique culture that qualifies as Moche. The classic vessel shape in the north coast under the Moche was the stirrup spout vessel, and yes, it is shaped like a horse's stirrup with a spout coming out of it. It is not what we would expect, perhaps, but it serves the purpose particularly well along a desert coast because it keeps the liquid from evaporating. It protects the liquid inside the container very well. It also provides a very easy way to carry the vessel. It can be easily carried by hand, or you could string a rope through the opening so that it would be easy to perhaps carry over your back or attach to a belt. It also conveys ideas of duality, and of course along with that notions of tinku, two opposites coming together, perhaps forcibly, to create a single whole. But for the Moche, this also probably is an important reference to Chavin. The two vessels on the right are Moche. The vessel on the left is coastal Chavin, as just a sample to kind of remind us that Chavin and coastal Chavin also engaged in the use of stirrup spout vessels. For the Moche, by referencing Chavin, they're making themselves acquire prestige through association. We're kind of reviving forms, but we're associating with those forms. Again, very much like we do in the United States by referencing ancient Greece in terms of our public architecture. For those of you who might like to get an idea of how these were made, they were produced as mold-made images, and they do go through a number of stages, the last of which would be the painting in slip and then firing the image. If you are interested in how to make a stirrup spout, I have photographed and included the directions at the top left of the slide, just to give you an idea of some of the steps that would have been involved in creating one of these vessels. It was standardized, and that's one of the features of Moche creations in general, but at the same time, it was also creative. The portrait heads that we're going to be looking at are the best in the New World. The Moche are famous for these, and I would like you to be thinking of these as sculpture rather than as ceramics, because the head of the individual is fully three-dimensional, and in fact people do argue that these are true portraits. They may be true portraits, but they nevertheless remain relatively generalized. Most of these are stirrup spout vessels, and all of them are males, and they generally have headdresses which attest to the rank of the individuals. We can, in some rare cases, actually trace the same person over his lifetime, seeing him early in life as a young man. We actually watch him age, and then at the end of his life, in some cases, we can also find depictions of him as a bound prisoner, which gives us a little bit of an idea that these vessels trace a Moche lord who is warrior at the same time over his successful career on the battlefield, at the end of which, when we believe he loses in battle, he does in fact become a sacrificial victim. Around 95% of the portrait vessels that the Moche produced were actually looted, which means that we don't have an archaeological context for them. But we can tell from looking at them that they appear to have been used. What that suggests is that the individual depicted, at least that's what we're thinking right now, had them made and distributed, and the people in the Moche community, both near and far, appear to have actually used these, and as they did, they'd be reminded of the prominence of the Moche lord who paid for the creation of these objects, perhaps promoting his own reputation. I guess you could say it's a little bit like wearing a t-shirt with a logo on it. You use it every time you pick up the t-shirt. You think of the team or the product that is emblazoned on the t-shirt that you're wearing. And if it is a gift, you are always, in a way, kind of reminded of the debt you have to the person who gave you that gift. The image that we're looking at right now is certainly the most famous of all of the portrait heads that are produced in Peru. And I do think you can argue that it characterizes the sitter. He's vigorous, he's shown in his prime, and he is also depicted as incredibly proud and confident and certain of himself. We can tell that he is a member of the elite. He's wearing ear spools. Back in the day, those could have been wooden. The elite could also have had gold, and it is unfortunate all of the wooden spools have decayed. We do, however, have remaining gold objects, which give us an idea of what these earrings actually look like. He also is wearing an elaborate headband. There is first a turban underneath a kind of wreath-like decoration. So this thing right here is the wreath-like part, and this is set upon a turban that is tied on the head of our Lord. Let's just look at how that works. This is another portrait head coming from Moche that makes it easy to see the creation of the top of these vessels. Many of them come without the wreath that sits on the head of our Lord we started with. This is one of them, and if we go to the back of it, we can see that it's actually painted in slip to suggest that it's tied, so that we have essentially the hanging portions of the knot that comes down on the back of our figure. The vessel that we happen to be looking at right now, again, a pretty impressively crafted depiction of an individual. It is subject to cloud firing. You're going to see a darkening of the face. This is irregular and unplanned blackened areas where the oxygen is not flowing equally in the firing chamber, so the pot is produced with an uneven black surface. I don't think it detracts that much from the ability to appreciate this object as a work of art, however. Okay, over that turban, a wreath is sometimes placed, and that's again what we're looking at here with some birdies. We've actually excavated one that has survived, and it's made out of perishable materials, reeds basically, but it adds an additional layer of status to the Moche Lord who is depicted. Some of these figures additionally will have face painting, which helps to differentiate them and I think to increase their status also.